Alrighty. Yeah, lying in bed with little cats. Just thought I'd just voice a few thoughts about Trump and everything like that. If this whole debt thing doesn't wind itself up before he gets in, don't worry. It will occur under his leadership, and it's sort of a bit of a fluke the way things are going. You know, I saw some dickhead in the internet comments who obviously had his brains trickling out of his ear, saying that Trump will be susceptible to whoever buys him out in regards to, lobbyists and politicians who are sort of have their campaigns funded by special interest groups and certain industry groups and whatnot. And you can almost guarantee that if a politician has their campaign funded by some industry group or major bank or something like that, that they're going to give them special consideration. And this idiot said, Trump will be just like everybody else. He'll just play to whatever group, is funding him and whatever one who, is helping him out. That's who, God blimey. The guy is worth $10 billion. $10 billion. He doesn't need to have his campaign funded, and he's openly stated that he's funded his campaign entirely himself because he can. And then all of a sudden, you don't face the same crap that you're going to with some other politicians who had a bunch of Wall Street banks fund their campaigns, and then, guess what, later on we get bailouts or we get some special treatment or some other shit like that. That is interesting. The other thing is he's one of very few people who has sort of got into politics straight up because he saw a need to. I've seen things trying to pretend that he didn't intend to run for president, blah, blah, blah. You know the clip they showed? Honestly, it was a clip with him talking with David Letterman. Honest to God, I think it would have been from about 1989. I mean, it was that old. And they, Letterman asks, do you intend to go for president? And he goes, no, I don't. And they're trying to, almost pass that off as though he wasn't, and now he's just decided he is. Well, shit, the clip is so old that, the quality of the footage was rough enough as it was, and Letterman actually had some fucking hair, as did Trump, God blimey. But the thing is, he's a dude who is not from some political dynasty with all these, ass-kissing connections, like the Clintons, like the Bushes, it's all just a big dynasty of Washington, D.C. connections and connections with big industry and all. He's sort of come in as an outsider without a great heap of political baggage, hanger-on or as special interests and all this shit, and all of a sudden, bingo, he's just on the scene. And he's a very sort of a loud personality, and he's a very definitive. He's not one of these wishy-washy motherfuckers like some of the shit you see over the years with politics. I mean, honestly, I feel like I am one of probably only a few percent, you guys would probably be included in this, who can actually remember shit from more than a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't believe the time I was sitting there watching TV, and it was a bit of an American news thing. I think it was PBR we get over here on a particular bizarre station. They have PBR News. Oh, yeah, they have PBR, but I think I can't remember if it's NBC as well or something. But anyway, it was basically some American TV thing, and they talked to this guy from, I don't know, it was Pittsburgh or something. It was an area where steel was a big thing, and there was a lot of blue-collar workers, and he turns around and says, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton because Hillary Clinton's for guns. I felt like going, oh, fucking blow it out your ass, Hillary Clinton's pro-gun. Yeah. I know she's made this little story about when her father, taught her how to use a gun and all this sort of... Get real. You really think she'd be pro-gun? Like, deep down, honest to God, is she going to turn up and say, okay, that's it, full autos are fucking legal for sale, bang, off you go, she's not going to open things up in regards to guns. She mightn't make it quite as hard as some politicians would, but it wouldn't be much friggin' easier, I'll put it like that. She's not going to be handing out fucking AR-15s to every Tom, Dick and his mate, It's some of these things, their true agenda, and they flip and flop and waffle on and just say whatever needs to be said to whatever crowd they're in front of at the time. I remember seeing Romney, they busted him. It was 5 minutes and 15 seconds from when he said one thing to when he come out to a crowd which was a different mob, and then he completely backflipped and said something which completely contradicted what he'd said 5 minutes and 15 seconds earlier. And there are all these... Michelle Bachmann was one who was great for that. Change her story completely according to what crowd she's in. And I've seen her once get on TV and she didn't know what the demographic, what the crowd of people who were watching that show would be. And holy fucking cow, they asked her something about her opinions on gays and she didn't know if she was coming or going. Oh, it was a circus. But anyway, this is the thing, a lot of the politicians that were on the run that time, Romney was, they were changing their opinion to whatever crowd they're talking to. And Trump's not like that. He's a very straight-out personality who just says, this is what I think, bang, and socks it straight down the line. And the lack of wishy-washiness, I think, means two things. He will not get into office and do, 90% of shit completely different from what he might have said to the crowd you're in when you saw him come to town. And in a way, he'll be sort of predictable, but as a result, it'll sort of be stable. It won't be like, come in on one platform and then when you get into power, just fucking backflip on everything, like most politicians tend to. I think he's the sort of guy who would keep his word, maybe not 100%, but at least 80%. You know what I'm saying? Like, he won't just sort of change everything that he said just means nothing when he gets into power. He's got that sort of a personality that he's not going to waver easily. He's not going to be wishy-washy or change or bend very easily. And in some ways, that may be a bad thing, but in other ways, there's times where you need a tough-talking bloke who just sticks his fucking ground, especially when it comes to giving concessions to every other friggin' dribbling little bunch of pricks, like... A lot of this business of politics is good at... they don't necessarily negotiate. There's sometimes they just fucking sell out. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think he'll sell anyone out. Not in America anyway. Let's put it like that. He's not the sort of one that goes into negotiations and comes out and you walk out of it with you basically... with a deal that's a raw deal. He will make sure that you get a good deal every fucking time, because he loves making deals, and that is his thing, But it won't be any compromise deal where you sort of end up kissing all the arse of, half of the EU or half of the other G20 nations or anything like that. He'll be socking it pretty hard. In this, I think he's got a lot of enemies already, but there's a strange thing that's a couple of strange things. I don't know if you've seen the footage of old Bush from back in the early 90s there, doing a motion which almost looks like slitting your throat sort of thing, like he's telling Trump, if you get in, we're going to fucking kill you. And don't be surprised if Trump does get assassinated or have some sort of assassination attempt, because he's so radical in the way that he's... When I've said he's straight down the line and he's stable, that's for what he says. But if there's stuff that is undecided, like maybe America's debt, or like the CIA's role in the country, or stuff like that, he may decide to just look at it all and just say, this doesn't add up economically. You know what? One day he's just deciding, bang, fuck off all the subsidies, and all of a sudden all the farm subsidies are gone, or all the subsidies for this thing or that thing, or the majority of crony capitalism just blows it out the window and says, we can't afford to subsidise all these industries because their debt's too big. All of a sudden there's no farm industries. Bang, just smashes things to bits that were there, that were sort of special interest or crony capitalism or were thought to be safe, and he suddenly just takes another look at all this stuff and says, we can't afford that, bang, and I expect there to be a lot of cost cutting, because he is a guy who has come out and stated that buildings that the government's built he could have built for 1/12 the cost, 1/8 the cost, and he quite often, just as a bit of a hobby, when the government gets something built, he'll try and calculate how much it would have cost him to get something built and still make himself a profit. And, he does have that cost-cutting thing, so that will mean that certain government jobs, crony capitalism, government contractors, while many things he'll stick his ground and stay on, there'll be a lot of cost-cutting going on, and the old, safe, government jobs and all that won't be safe worth a fucking $2, because I can see that he's likely to come in and in an effort to try and stifle the debt, he will just cut the fucking balls out of all this, special interest groups that are bleeding off government money, and I mean, it'll be a shock, and that may lead to some sort of an assassination attempt or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised at all, especially if it decides to look at the CIA's budget and cut the fucking thing down to a quarter its size or something like that. That may be the last fatal move. But anyway, it's interesting how the Chinese have said that if he, only 4 days ago, or might be 5 days ago now, from when I'm making this, the Chinese have basically come out and said if Trump gets in, there will be quote-unquote repercussions, and I believe involving US debt held by China. There will be repercussions. Either they'll want their money back, or it doesn't quite work like, you owe us money, we want our money back. What it is they'll dump the bonds. And they might have US government bonds, and they'll just decide, you know what? We're going to decide as a totalitarian government to tell everybody that they've got to dump their bonds. Or the ones that the Chinese government has, they will just sell the fucking lot. And that will start a dive, and then it's a bit of a thing with the Chinese government. They've got a bit of muscle in their own country, obviously. If they decide to sell off all the US bonds in one hit, all the Chinese people who hold them, multi-millionaire Chinese included, like Chinese boss, and even billionaire Chinese, will suddenly decide, oh, this is what we expected to do, and also, like, shit, the government's run to sell these. They're trying to get out as quick as they can. Fuck this, I better get out as quick as they can. There'll be a reason why the government's trying to get out, which I might find out later, but at the moment, just sell. If they're selling, there's something wrong, so I better start selling. And it's sort of a bit like a copycat thing. And sometimes if you're not a copycat, then you might be thought of as a dissident, so you've got to be a copycat. It's sort of, yeah, you've got to really know how to play your hand of cards when you're wealthy in China. And you, by necessity, if you're going to stay wealthy, have to have political connections and political mates in China. Yeah, anyway, they may decide to dump all US government bonds. That will be the day the chickens come home to roost. And come what may with that. But they've said, there's going to be repercussions, and I think it's debt-based stuff, which means bonds, which means dump all your bonds onto the market and watch as the whole lot of them become worth nothing. Which means there will be no more creditworthiness in the US government for a bloody long time. It is expected that the bonds market will crash with all this financial shenanigans that are going on right now, and that could be basically the first domino that gets flicked over, with the Chinese deciding to sell off US bonds, and then the whole lot will just friggin' domino down from that. And that would be a bloody big domino to fall that could set off quite a lot of them, to be honest, because there is, what is it, 1.6 trillion of US debt held by the Chinese. It's pretty friggin' substantial amount. Anyway, the other one that's really funny is Bernie Sanders supporters are claiming that if Hillary gets the Democrat nomination, they're going to all just turn around and vote Trump anyway. Yeah, that's right. Bernie Sanders supporters are saying that if Hillary gets the Democrat nomination for president, as a revolt, as a friggin', way of kicking it back to the Democrats, they're just going to vote for Trump instead. That could work even better. But I think everything's headed up for him. I think he's got a hell of a chance. And I hope he does get in. And, there will be hell to pay probably when he gets in. He's not part of the establishment. The establishment doesn't like him. All these political dynasty families that are just fucking helping special interest groups bleed the shit out of the country in the form of making more debt, more government debt. Let's make more government debt and then give all this money to our friends that's basically money that has come from the government getting deeper into debt. I mean, you're looking at the Clintons, you're looking at the Bushes right there with that sort of shit. And all the status quo doesn't like him, and there's more and more and more that come out against him. And, that's because he doesn't do things the right way. The Huffington Post initially said they wouldn't, print any of his stuff, and if they did, it'd be in the humour section, because he's not a real political candidate and he's only playing around. I've seen other people say, oh no, he'll fall by the wayside and Jeb Bush will take it. Are all these fucking media types so stupid that they don't realise that the United States is just sick of all these dog and pony show fucking career politicians from these political fucking dynasties with all these special interest groups? People are sick to fucking death of it. And, quite honestly, I think if fucking I turned up there with $10 billion for a campaign, they'd probably fucking vote for me, even though they couldn't understand what the bloody hell I was saying. Half of them, anyway. Just because they are sick of all these, political families who, it's just a lifelong career with all your little special interest friends that you're shoveling money out the side door to, Everyone's fucking sick of it. And these stupid media people actually think that at the end of the day, you're going to be stupid enough to vote for one of these political families that's been in there for friggin' decades, Anyway, it is good that he's a fresh face, and I think as they say, when when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and I think that may be what America needs right now. So, yeah.